Hello everyone, welcome to my new tutorial. And if you want to know how to create this with geometry nodes, that tiny planet where the vegetation, the rocks and the buildings automatically adapt to the areas with no water. And of course you can apply a new size of the planet, and the clouds will automatically grow with that planet. You can change the shape of the ocean, you can change the size of every item you can see here, and of course the background. Yes, if you want to know how to create this with geometry nodes, stay tuned and watch this video. As usual, we will start with our default cube as geometry nodes container. We activate it and go into the geometry nodes panel, click on new to create a new geometry node setup. We disconnect the input from the output, and we will start by making our world with an icosphere connected to the group output, and we'll give the icosphere a radius of about 10 meters and 5 subdivisions. And now we want to create some continents and the ocean, and therefore we have to delete some geometry from the icosphere, and we will do that with a delete geometry node. And as you can see nothing because it deleted everything, and we have to tell the node what should be seen and what should be invisible. So we will do that with a noise texture, and for the randomness we will need some RGB curves and a color ramp, and plug the FAC into the color and color into FAC, and the color again in the selection of the delete geometry. And as you can see, you can still see nothing. That's because it needs to have certain values. To be honest, I had to play with it a little bit. Maybe you just copy my settings. The scale, it needs 0.0.3. No, first we're going to set it to 4D. The scale is 0.0.3. The detail is 3. Roughness 1 and distortion 0.5. Of course you can play with it later on to create some new interesting worlds. And the color ramp we need to invert, and now we can see we have some continents and an ocean, or at least the land, not the ocean, but the ocean will later on appear just in the gaps. And with the RGB curves we can now control the randomness of our world. But right at the moment I will leave it just like this. That looks pretty cool. And with RGB curves you can control the land mass and the ocean. So now, to make it a bit more smooth, we need a subdivision surface. And we will plug that right between the earth and our delete geometry. Subdivision surface. And we will give that a number of about 5 if you have a 4. If you have a stronger computer, you can go up a little bit higher, but I think that's enough. The edges still look a little bit rough, but you can hide that later with some grass or stones or whatever to hide these rough edges. Normally you will see it from a distance like that, so nobody will see the rough edges. So now it's time for some material. I move my group output and we will use Z material. I will turn the level a little bit down so that it speeds up a little bit. So, and I've already created some material. I named it basic ground, I think. It's nothing fancy. something like that. I will show you basic ground. It's just some noise texture with a color ramp with colors, and the noise texture goes also into the roughness and the bump channel. But of course you can plug in every material you want. So now we will add a switch node. Maybe you want to hide all the land mass and only have an ocean water planet. And with a switch node, you can turn off the land. Now it's time for the ocean. Maybe we connect all that, press Ctrl J and have a new frame. We will name it, where is it? No, node. We will name it land, and now we need our ocean. We will create another icosphere, and also give it a subdivision of about 5, and the water should be only a little bit smaller than the Earth itself, so it makes sense that we have a common value, and we plug that value into the radius of the icosphere and into the radius of our Earth icosphere. Give it again a radius of 10. Then we will need a math node and subtract from our water only small amount, maybe 0.001, no, 0.001. Then we will need a join geometry node and plug our water so something like that. Now there's our water. The value was a little bit too low. Now that will be our water. We can apply a material, set material. I've already created an ocean material. It's also just a shader with some bump, and it's a blue shader with a little bit of it's a transmission shader with a bump node, so nothing fancy too. But that looks a little bit weird because we can look right through the Earth. That does not make sense. So we need something like an Earth core. First of all, we will group our ocean, name it ocean, and now we need an Earth core. Again, we need an icosphere. We need subtract math. Set it to subtract, and this time we will subtract a little bit more, maybe something like 2 meters, and plug the value into it and the value into the radius, and everything into the join geometry node. And of course we need a material because no Earth core is shiny white. Set material, and I think we can give it also the basic ground material. And now we have our ground, and you can control the depth of the ocean by controlling that size. If you Now the Earth core is really small, and the ocean is really deep. That doesn't make sense. I think about 2 will be fine. Group set 2, we will name it Earth core. And now it's time to make some clouds. So you might guess it. The clouds are also an icosphere. Again, we need an icosphere. We plug the value of the radius against it, and this time the clouds must be, the radius must be higher than the Earth itself. So we need a math node, and this time we will add some values. This time maybe 10 of, no, 10, and plug it into our geometry node. And now we have a really big cloud container. We give it a subdivision of 5.2. And so that we can see something, we need again that material. And I've already created some cloud material. Let me show you my cloud material. Clouds. It's just a principled volume with a color ramp and a noise texture. You can copy my values if you want, or just create some own. With the color ramp, you control the density of your clouds, and if you set your noise texture to 4D, you can also animate the clouds later on. With the scale, you control the size of the clouds, and with the detail, you control nothing. And distortion, of course, makes what the name says. It distorts the clouds. So I will leave it by 0. So now we have the problem that the clouds look pretty one-dimensional. They are literally one curved flat, but we want to give it some kind of depth. So how do we do that? I'm pretty sure there are several ways. I found the way that worked best for me is to create another icosphere. And that icosphere is a little bit smaller than the first one. So again, we need a math node. And this time we will subtract. No, this will be our inner core, and we give it a size of 2. And the second one will be the outer layer of the clouds. So we have to add something again, maybe a value of 2. We plug that in our second icosphere, second cloud icosphere. And now we have to subtract the inner circle from the outer circle. Have to change it just like this, and now we need a mesh boolean node, and we click the first one, the bigger one, into the mesh 1, and the smaller one into mesh 2, and give it the material. And now we should have some thickness in our clouds. I think it worked. Yes, we have some volume in our clouds. As you can see here, The clouds are all over scattered between the upper and the lower radius. So we can set this down to a realistic value, maybe something like that looks like clouds. And that was the tricky part of our tutorial. We group that and rename it to clouds, and the rest of the tutorial will just be adding our assets. Of course, you can use your own assets. That would take too long to explain how I created all my assets, and I think it's not too it's very easy. I have no complicated assets. One thing I have to tell you is where to plug your assets in, and I think we will start with our grass. Just I activate my grass and just drag and drop it into our scene. And to make some distribution, we need a distribute on points node. Distribute, no, that was the wrong one. No, it was the right one. Distribute points on faces. We need an instance on points node. We will need a switch node to turn the grass on and off. And now just plug after your delete geometry, because we want our grass only on the land mass and not on the water. We want the deleted geometry. Grab that and plug that into your distribute points on faces node. That goes just into the points, and now our grass activate separate children, reset children, and plug it into instance. Activate pick instance. That goes right into the switch, and the switch goes into our join geometry node. So, and of course we forgot to turn our switch on so that we can see our grass. And now we have the complicated part done. We have our grass on our planet, and but it still looks a little bit too uniform. We have to give it some randomness, and it also looks all the grass assets look straight up. We have to align them around the normals. To align all the grass models to the normal direction, we need an align to Euler node, align Euler to vector node, and we need a random value node. We set the random value to vector and connect the random value into the rotation. Set the align to Euler to set, and here we can type in tau, and tau. That makes sure that we have the maximum and randomness rotation. That's I think the double of pi or p in German. So now we can plug the normal into our vector and the rotation into our instance on points rotation, and voila, we can see everything is aligned to the normals and is rotated in a random way. So the rest, I think it's just copy and paste. Again, we group it and name it grass. We also need some random value for the height. Therefore we need random. We let that be a float and plug that into our scale. And now you can control the minimum size and the maximum size. With the density, you can control the density. And there we have our planet. At the end, when you are finished with all your settings, you can crank up a little bit your subdivisions, maybe there, and your subdivision surface there. And nobody should see the harsh edge. And the rest is just copy and paste. You take that grass group, copy it, and for example replace the grass nodes with your, what do we have with the trees? Trees, green leaves. Plug the mesh into the delete geometry node and switch into your join geometry. That takes a moment. Now we can see nothing because the trees are of course much higher than the grass, and we need to lower our random value, maybe something like that. Maybe we can reduce first our density. Set this to 0.5 maybe. Maybe something like that. And there we have our trees. And the rest you can imagine how it works. Just copy and paste for every asset. I have some buildings, some rocks, some flowers to make it look a little bit more natural, and that's all. There you have your tiny planet, and you can control the planet with the RGB curves, your color ramp, and your noise texture. For example, if you want to have more detailed land, you can add. Then you have something like many islands, for example, and a lower value will give you more connected land mass. Now I will make a little bit less trees. Where are our trees? These are our trees. 0.3. It looks a little bit more natural, and so on. That was our tiny planet tutorial. Hope you enjoyed it. If you liked it, leave a like or subscribe to my channel.